Panthers star, Mitch Kenny, says Australian government is compliant in genocide of Palestinians. Can a single voice from the scrum, forged in the fire of premiership glory, pierce the silence of stadiums to echo across oceans, challenging the powers that be with the raw courage of conviction? The Sydney autumn of 2025 carried the weight of renewal, jacarandas shedding purple petals like quiet confessions along the streets of Penrith, where the Panthers' training ground hummed with the familiar rhythm of boots on dew-kissed grass. Mitch Kenny, the unassuming hooker whose sleight of hand passes had orchestrated 3 straight NRL titles, paused amid the drills, his face shadowed not by fatigue but by a fire that had been smoldering since a summer march across the Harbour Bridge. Please like, share, and subscribe for more sport talk content. It began months earlier, on August 3rd, under a sky heavy with the promise of rain, as 90,000 souls converged on the bridge's arching
It was
spine,
that Australian government is compliant in genocide of
Palestinians. Nations. Kenny stood among them, shoulder to shoulder with teammate Izack Tago, their Panthers hoodies a subtle armor in the sea of keffiyehs and placards, the chant, "Free, Free Palestine," rising like a halftime haka that no opposition could silence. The march had been more than a statement. It was a pilgrimage for Kenny, a young man raised in the working class weave of McGraths Hill, where rugby league was religion and fairness the unspoken creed. Influenced by mentors like Anthony Mundine, whose own stands had carved paths through controversy, Kenny felt the pull of heritage, not just his own, but the shared Australian story of speaking truth amid the roar of complacency. In the weeks that followed, whispers of his presence rippled through locker rooms and living rooms, but Kenny held his peace, letting actions speak until the weight demanded words. Teammates noticed the quiet intensity in his eyes during film sessions, the way he'd linger over news feeds on his phone, the bridge march a seed now blooming into resolve. The turning point unfolded in the dim glow of a podcast studio in Sydney's inner west, the air thick with the scent of fresh coffee and unspoken steaks. Mitch sat across from host Josh Mansour, his former winger turned confidant, the microphone a reluctant confessor. As questions turned from Panthers tactics to personal tides, Mansour leaned in. That march, what moved you to step out there, mate? Kenny's pause stretched like the final seconds of a grand final, his hands clasping and unclasping as if gripping an invisible ball. Then, with the steady gaze of a man who'd faced down defensive lines, he spoke. The Australian government's compliant in the genocide of Palestinians. It's not just words. It's our silence, our support, that's the betrayal. The studio fell hushed, Mansour's nod a silent ally, the recording light blinking like a heartbeat exposed. Outside, in the shadowed alley where the crew packed gear, Kenny confided to a producer, voice low, I grew up idolizing players who stood for something. If I can't use this platform for the voiceless, what's it all for? The premierships are gold, but this is the real fight. The words landed not with bombast, but with the quiet thunder of conviction, a hooker's dummy half that left the room, and soon the world, reeling. The clip from that interview dropped like a perfectly timed grubber kick, slicing through the NRL's off-season calm and into the broader arena of national discourse. Within hours, it had amassed millions of views, fans in Penrith pubs pausing mid-pint to watch on phones, their cheers mingling with murmurs of agreement and unease. Social media erupted in a spectrum of solidarity. #StandWithMitch trending alongside Palestinian flags superimposed on Panthers jerseys, supporters from Cairns to Cronulla sharing stories of their own brushes with injustice. From the scrum to the streets, respect, one veteran fan posted, while Indigenous voices amplified the call, drawing parallels to fights for country that Kenny's stand now echoed. News outlets, from the Daily Mail to ABC panels, dissected the moment with measured breath, headlines framing not scandal but substance. Panthers roar for Palestine. In Brisbane's cauldrons and Melbourne's cafes, reactions poured in, rival fans tipping hats, some teammates posting subtle thumbs up in stories, the ripple crossing into international waters where Pacific communities saw a brother honoring the global kin. The cultural depth of Kenny's words rooted deep in Australia's sporting soil, a land where rugby league has long been the voice of the marginalised, miners' sons and migrants' dreams, where figures like Mundine and Arthur Beetson turned fields into forums for fairness. His accusation of governmental complicity tapped into a heritage of dissent, from Vietnam marches to Uluru statements, reminding a nation that athletes' platforms are pulpits for the powerless. Reflection descends like evening fog over the Panthers' Nepean River training fields, where Kenny now runs drills with the same purpose that carried him across the bridge. This moment unveils the quiet heroism woven into sports fabric. Not just the try-scoring flash, but the moral muscle that propels a player from the ruck to the ramparts of righteousness. It illuminates the humanity in the halfback's hustle. The way Kenny's stand reveals that true toughness lies in vulnerability, in risking endorsement deals and easy applause for a cause that bleeds beyond borders. In a league built on brotherhood, his voice becomes a huddle for the heart, urging players to see their influence as a bridge, not a bunker. Sportsmanship, often celebrated in clean hits and fair play, finds fuller form here. In the grace of speaking uncomfortable truths, in the way Kenny's words invite dialogue rather than division, modeling for young fans that victory includes voicing the silenced. It speaks to character as the ultimate stat, unyielding in the face of fallout, rooted in the values of equity that rugby league's working class cradle demands. What does this say about legacy in an era of filtered feeds and fleeting fame? For Kenny, it's the shift from premiership medallions to moral milestones, a reminder that the greatest runs are those toward righteousness, carrying not just a team but a tapestry of causes forward. The human spirit thrives in such stands, where one man's microphone becomes a megaphone for multitudes, challenging us to reflect on our own complacencies, the silences we keep, the bridges we cross or burn. Kenny's courage whispers that empathy is the ultimate endurance, a value as enduring as the game's oldest rivalries. In the quiet hours after training, as the sun dips behind the Blue Mountains, Kenny's journey prompts us to honor the heritage of athlete activists, those who lace up not just for glory, but for the greater good, weaving personal conviction into the national narrative. Kenny's own words, delivered in that podcast with the weight of worlds, carried a humility born of hard-won perspective. I'm no expert, just a bloke from the bush who can't unsee the suffering. If my voice adds to the chorus, that's enough. The government's got the power. We've got the platform to push back. In a follow-up Instagram Live, streamed from his McGraths Hill home amid family photos and Panthers memorabilia, he reflected, "The march changed me. Walking with 90,000 strangers felt like running out at Suncorp. Nerves, unity, purpose. Calling out complicity. That's the tough yards, but silence is the real sin. I'm learning every day, and I'll keep showing up." Speaking to young Indigenous players at a Penrith clinic, his tone softened with growth. "We play a game that teaches fight, but life demands fairness. My stand for Palestine, it's tied to my people's stories, displacement, resilience. Humility means listening more than leading, amplifying the elders who know the pain deepest." To a group of aspiring hookers in a post-interview huddle, he shared perspective laced with humor. "Kids, premierships are sweet, but standing tall off the field. That's the legacy tackle. I got backlash, sure, but the support from brothers like Izack. That's the win that sticks." As the 2026 season looms, Kenny returns to the fray with quiet resolve, his jersey a canvas for causes, the Panthers' den a space where activism and athleticism coexist. Teammates wear subtle keffiyeh patterns on wristbands, a nod to the man who reminded them sports' reach extends to the world's wounded places. This moment, sparked by a march and magnified by a microphone, becomes rugby league's gentle insurrection, a call to wield influence with intention, to transform fanbases into forces for equity, bridging the gap between grand final glory and global grief. In the end, Mitch Kenny's stand endures as Australia's sporting conscience, a legacy not of trophies alone, but of truths told tenderly, of a hooker's heart that hooks the soul.